Good evening. Let's go ahead and get our service started. Good to see you all out tonight. And I know there's several watching online tonight, and we're excited. Harry and Bee's going to be talking about their last mission trip to Togo. And so Kevin's just going to kind of open us in a song or two, and then we'll turn it over to you guys, okay? And so excited about that. Let me see here. Wednesday, of course, there's no EBC Kids Club because the kids are out of school, but there will be the student ministry at 6 o'clock. Our prayer and Bible study in Ephesians. I think Daniel's just going to go where I kind of left off, Ephesians 4:31 through 32, or he'll probably go a lot further than that, but talking about forgiveness, so it'll be good. But Daniel will be speaking Wednesday night. Then Saturday, don't forget, if you're doing the conference call with Bobby, that's in there. And then we got the Easter egg hunt this Saturday. Can you believe Easter's on us? So that's awesome. And so I think it's starting at 11 o'clock. I think they're finishing up stuffing eggs right now. But be praying for that. Like I said, we normally have a lot of unchurched people here and kids. And so, and of course, they'll share the gospel at some point. So that's always wonderful. And then for Sunday, be praying about Sunday. Going to be talking from Isaiah 53, Suffering Servant. It's been a long time since I spoke from Isaiah 53, so it'll be a good message, Sunday morning for that, okay, for Easter. Is there anything else we need to mention tonight? Okay, if not, then Kevin, just lead us in some worship.
All right, let's all stand and we'll sing. If you want to grab your hymnal, we're going to sing some songs out of that this evening. We'll begin with hymn 566, Tell the Good News. Christ was born in a distant land. Tell the good news, tell the good news. Lived on earth for the good of man. Tell the good news, tell the good news. Tell the good news, tell the good news. Tell the good news. Christ has come. Tell the good news. Tell the good news. Tell the good news to everyone. Christ became a man on earth. Tell the good news. Tell the good news. Gave his life for man's rebirth. Tell the good news, tell the good news, tell the good news, tell the good news, tell the good news that Christ has come. Tell the good news, tell the good news, tell the good news to everyone. Christ arose and to heaven went. Tell the good news, tell the good news. All may follow who repent. Tell the good news, tell the good news. Tell the good news, tell the good news. Tell the good news that Christ has come. Tell the good news, tell the good news, tell the good news to everyone. And if you want to flip over to hymn number 559, Rescue the Perishing. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, snatch them in pity from sin and the grave. Weep o'er the erring one, lift up the fallen, tell them of Jesus the mighty to save. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying, Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. Though they are slighting him, still he is waiting, waiting the penitent child to receive. heart, crushed by the tempter, feelings I buried that grace can restore. Touched by a loving heart, wakened by kindness, chords that are broken will vibrate once more. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying. Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. Down in the perishing, duty demands it. Strength for thy labor the Lord will provide. Back to the narrow way, patiently win them. Tell the poor wanderer a Savior has died. Rescue the perishing, care for the dying. Jesus is merciful, Jesus will save. And then we've got one more song, and then Harry and B will come and share. We're going to sing hymn number 585, Tell It Out with Gladness. Tell it out with gladness, God's good news to every man. Sin forgiven, life's transfigured, all in God's great loving plan. In the book is found the witness to his mighty acts of yore. Listen, he'll obey and serve him, kneel before him and adore. Lord, we thank thee for the treasure hid within the sacred page. We would be thy faithful heralds to a deeply troubled age. We would publish thy salvation, ever on thy side to stand. Living, serving, giving, sending, life to quicken every land. Go and teach the spoke the Master, risen victor from the grave. Still he gives this great commission to his faithful ones and brave. Let men know the gospel story of what man through Christ can be. Send it to the nation, that God's love may set men free. All right, you guys go ahead and be seated, and Harry and B will come and share now.
All right, can you hear me? It's a privilege to give you a report about our time in Togo, West Africa. After all, you invested your money in us. You ought to get something out of that money, right? And so missionaries need to be accountable, and that's what we want to do. So we're going to show you some slides about some things that are going on. Let's see. Kevin, you want to turn out a few lights maybe so they can see it a little bit better? And we'll take you on a little bit of trip to Togo, West Africa here, okay? We're going to start slowly because I've got to explain that the reason that the mission asked us to go back to Togo, West Africa, was not a good reason. There was money missing at the hospital, and they had accountants, they had all kinds of stuff going on trying to find what was going on, and basically there was about $65,000 missing over a period of about 6 to 8 years. And so they said, "Go ahead, Harry, you fix it." So that's how I got back there to Togo, and we fixed it. So what had happened was all the checks and systems that we had, they had done away with them, and that's what caused the problem. It's a cash society. Virtually 99% of the money that comes through the hospital is cash. We might get maybe 3 checks a year. Everybody else pays cash. So it's real easy to not have good systems and money disappear. So that has been fixed now, okay? So that was the reason that we went. This is the administration building where I work, and that's where all the action happens. Now, who's running it while I'm gone? Okay. We had a young man and his wife and how many kids? 5, 6 kids that came out to be teachers of all of the missionary kids. And let's see, there's probably 20-some missionary kids there on the compound right now. And so their goal for 4 years was to teach the MK kids. Well, he knew spreadsheets well. He knew a little bit of accounting. So guess what happened? You know, missionaries do everything that if you got any talent, God's going to use it. So this is my Timothy. His name's Andy Kirby, and Andy does a fine job. He's learned the areas that he's weak in, and so now he does the budgets. He does the supervises the accounting, although we have accountants there. The 3 of the 4 financial employees that we had served time in prison, and so we had one that was left over, the best one, the one that I hired years ago. And so we have a new staff, a new setup now, and so forth. So Andy's doing it all. So he's doing a fine job. However, he wants to go back and teach. That's why they came out here. So there's a young man here right now, David Hughes. David has been out there before, and he knows what he's getting into, and he's making plans to go and take Andy's spot, if that works out. We'll see how the Lord leads in that. But he would be a good person to do that. He's done a number of those things before, and he would do a fine job. So if you want to meet David, he's right over here. Wave your hand so they understand who it is. Yes, there he is. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, next photograph. Some of you that have been to Togo recognize this guy in the blue shirt, John Tusink. All right. John is the backbone of the construction project, and not only does he do general projects around the hospital, they are in the process of doing a $10 million refurb to do a number of huge increases so that we can train African physicians in Africa. It's an organization that Pan-American Christian African Surgeons or something like that. Surgeons are very difficult to get, so we're in the process of doing all of that, and John's going to be the guy trying to build it all, right? No, he's going to have lots of help. But you can see John starting with some footers here on one of our construction projects, and then eventually you get block around that, and then you build another footer for the cement slab around it, and then you call your concrete truck. No, you call wheelbarrows. And you mix a wheelbarrow at a time for concrete, so you can see it's slow going. And then eventually you get this. So not only is it's really nice, it's probably the nicest homes that any of the people that come to the hospital have. You've got your own electricity, you've got a nice place to stay, it's all locked up. It's just a beautiful facilities now that we have that the Lord's given them there. Now, after we did most of that, while we were there, remember I told you we would be gone probably about 6 months or a year and 6 months. Well, the missionary family that was running the blind center, which is about an hour away down south, decided, hey, you're here, you are the one. So we got drafted into this job. So temporarily I like to call it the token white man that was the man running the blind center. Now, because of COVID, the blind center was pretty well closed. So I didn't have a whole lot to do for that particular thing, but I was in charge, and we wrote some checks and, made payroll and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, so that's why we extended our trip for another year. And some of you haven't been, even the guys that have been there have not been to the blind center. You can see some of the buildings that are there those are the school buildings. Off to the right, you have the girls' dorm. Way off to the left, you have the boys' dorm. And then you have some missionary homes. And this is where we stayed. This was our half of a duplex. So the other side is exactly like it. So it's just one big long monster roof. So that's where we stayed. That's where the other missionaries had been. You might be interested. We pay rent there, and it's $300 a month. But electricity is $200 a month. Electricity is very expensive in third world countries because something goes down. What do they use? Diesel generators. So that's what they use. And also, you see grass. Nowhere else in Togo do you see grass. Only the missionaries use grass because we don't like to walk on mud. And you'll see some pictures that you will understand what mud is here in just a second. So these are some of the blind kids that we have, probably 35, 40 kids in various stages of blindness. Some totally blind, some partially blind, some after they were born, after a couple of years, became blind. So there's all kinds of mixtures there and so forth. So when they come, what they do is they start in a small classroom, and they know their native language. In the first year, they have to learn French, which is the official language, and they start learning Braille. So these kids are not dumb. Just imagine walking into a school and have to learning 2 different languages. So that's why the classes are small. That's why we give them a lot of teaching and so forth. So then while we were there, this is the front of the big classroom building. Remember when COVID hit, my 1-hour drive to the hospital and back ceased. They closed the town. The only thing that came into town were food trucks. You could not leave. They had gendarmes parked in all of the spots. They turned you away. You could not go anywhere. So I had set aside $100 a month to handle gas back and forth. Gas is $4 a gallon there. Okay, so what do I do with this massive $100 a month over these months that I'm there? Well, here's what happens. You take a look at that picture, and what I did was this. I painted the outside. Okay, and when you look at the old system, you can see from the let's see, are we working here? Yeah, there we go. You can see that, whoop, I lose it when I get it on the screen. The left-hand building, you can see where the water runs off, hits the ground, splashes up on the block. The right-hand building, you can see just the rain comes in and wipes off the color. And so when you make it look nice, this is what you get. Okay? Much better. Or, like the front of the building here, see, all that's been washed away from the rain, and then you repaint it, and you get a nice-looking building. Or on the other end, you can see where it's been weathered, and all the wood up there needs to be restained so it doesn't rot and so forth, and then eventually you get this. So that's what I did with your extra $100 for every month. Okay. Now, why was that important? Well, we had a lady that looked us up on the internet. Her son worked at the Spanish embassy in Togo, found us on the internet and thought, this looks like a worthy organization. Had never seen us, never heard us, never done anything, and brought up in a car 1 month's worth of food for the entire operation. The staff, the kids, everything. So she said, you keep your place really nice. I'm going to give more money here. So when you make investments in quality, it shows, all right? So this was a great investment for your money. Okay. All right. Now, while we were there, of course, COVID hit just like it hits here. And so this is life before COVID. This is the church in the data that we go to when we are at the hospital. Now notice the nice grassy path there. That is all dirt. So guess what happens when it rains? You know, you have to be careful, or otherwise you slide into mud and fall down, okay? So that's the typical land that all of them have. And if you want to be neat in Togo, and you take your little brush that you have and you sweep the dirt so that it's nice and smooth. That's the way you take care of your dirt there, all right? Okay, while I'm there, of course, some of you don't know, I'm an old band director, so I play most of the brass instruments, and many of those are still used in our churches today because a lot of them still don't have electricity. So I kept lessons going with them and so forth so that they would, you can see what, 6 people on one music stand. So they work really hard, but they so they virtually memorize everything. And this is one of the typical classrooms that our schools have. You can see kids will be 3 on a bench, and they pretty well stay attention. I don't know whether if you in a normal school you had 3 kids on the bench, you'd have a war. But these kids do pretty well and but notice there's not a whole lot of materials. Our system, our stuff the B will tell you about in our Christian schools, we furnish free all of their textbooks and all of their materials, all their things that they, manipulatives and things that they have. No other school in Togo does this. If you go to school in Togo, what you have is what you brought with you, which is probably a slate and a piece of chalk and something to rub it off. And that's what you have. No textbooks, nothing going home, no pencils, no paper. You know, it's the earliest kind of education that you can think of. And Bea will explain more about that. Okay, and here's some kids. Early in the day, they all line up in each class and have their pledge to the flag. And you can see on the left-hand side, Christy. Remember, Christy's spoken here before, so you can see her there looking at the group. So this is typical in every school throughout Togo. And now this is one that you built. Some of you guys that went there, this is Amuoblo. You can see the name at the top. It's French, so you read it backwards. Bible Baptist Primary School, the Grace of God, Amuoblo. So you built this school. This is yours. So this is the finished project that you see there. All right, and here's some pictures of the kids that are there. Bea, why don't you come up and take over and start talking about all the kids. Every school has their own colors, their own dressing. But there's one I do want to show you here first. This one will be a surprise to you. You know who that is? That is Emily Mullins. Yes, Emily came out to visit us and was planning on staying a long time, but had to leave just before they shut down everything with the COVID. So there's a school that we have up north, and Bea was up there, and so they went to the one place that we still have elephants in Togo. So Emily got to use that and make friends with this elephant. Now, but what you don't know about Emily is that among all of the skills that Emily has, she's a welder. You didn't know that, did you? My granddaughter, the welder. So here she is. John Tusink immediately put her to work. So there she is welding. And I noticed that it's the only welder that you'll ever see wearing a skirt. Because in Togo, the women wear skirts. Okay? So she may have a pair of pants underneath, but you have to do what the custom is there. So there's Emily welding away in her skirt. All right? Life after COVID. All right? This is what it meant. Take over, babes.
Where am I?
The right-hand button.
Every school, at the public schools, they just wear beige uniforms. But our schools, each school just chooses its own color that they want. And so you saw green and purple, and there's blue and everything. And so they just take great pride. I was just amazed. Our school in Adada is pink. They wear pink shirts and all. And when they started the junior high, I was saying, now what color are the junior high? Are they going to go for, because they're mostly boys. Oh yeah, we're going to do pink. So there's no gender colors there, but they all have their pink uniforms. But anyway, Okay, so what did we do March through October? Okay, this is an ancient photo. When we started, this is at the end of 2005, well, May of 2006, probably, our first graduating class. What we did is to train teachers 1 year at a time. The first year we trained first grade teachers and wrote first grade curriculum, and those are our first grade teachers that we graduated, about 20 of them. And I started with a candle and lit, and we sing at every graduation ceremony, "Go Light Your World." And we would light the candles of all the teachers. And we started with me and just a handful of others, and then 15 teachers, and now we have over 4,000 students in our schools, 17 elementary schools, 5 junior high schools, and 4,100 children. So it's just, they're lighting the world. They're lighting the world. It's just amazing. Mostly what I do, and particularly this summer, but usually in summers, we train teachers and we write curriculum. Usually, for the last several summers, we've had right now it's about 175 teachers to the Blind Center. The Blind Center, we have a Bible Institute, and there's a dormitory where we put up pastors who come for 2 weeks of Bible Institute classes at a time. But we just overrun that, and there's a convent down the road, too, that has rooms where we can have some of the teachers stay. But in the past, we've just trained teachers en masse for a whole week. There's a church in West Virginia. Where in West Virginia? Virginia Beach. Okay, in Virginia Beach, that comes, and they put on our teacher training. And these teachers come, we plan it with them. The topics that they'll teach for all the discipline, classroom management, reading skills, and we just have sessions for a whole week for different grade levels of teachers. But this church, they bring out 7 to 10 teachers. They pay for everything. They pay for their flights out. They pay for us, of course, to put up the teachers. They pay for a meal for the teachers every day. They bring goodie bags for the teachers. They pay for a lot of curriculum. They just raise a lot of money to come out and help us with things. But they've just been a great school for that. Grace Baptist in the early years in Chattanooga did the same thing. They helped pay for all the teacher training that we did. So we have some wonderful churches that support us. But this is basically summer, working with teachers. And this year, this is Andrew at one of our teacher training sessions. And I can't tell you how God has blessed us. I mean, I've told you before, I am the least qualified person in the world to be training teachers. I mean, my degree is in dramatic production. So, but God sent Andrew out, who has an EDD, a doctorate in education. So actually he'll know what to do. I was just kind of feeling it. So he'll just stand on my shoulders and build something really worthwhile. So, but he's just excellent. It's a problem, his being so young, because it's the older men who wield all the authority. But Andrew has a doctorate, and education trumps age. So that was just, a grace that God gave Andrew to have, because everybody respects him, looks up to him, and he's just marvelous. Just exactly what we need for our schools. And he does Bible Institute training, and he also is the team leader for our 30-some missionaries there in the south of Togo. When you saw the picture that Harry showed of the house where we lived on the Blind Center property, he was probably standing on the front porch of Andrew's house. So we were just within walking distance of Andrew and Mary and our grandchildren, so that was terrible too. But that was wonderful. Okay. Then, is that it? No, here's another one. Okay. Yes, so this was one of the teacher training sessions. Actually, because we couldn't bring in all the teachers, we had to have groups of like 20. We could bring that many in. So these are principals, directors of schools. So we did a training for the directors. And this year, when we came out, we just, you read a lot of business books, and they say you have to have buy-in. All your employees have to buy in. So, you need to get all these focus groups together and find out what they want to do and all that. Well, no, Togo is not there yet. I think it's the French colonial system. Just beat it into them, whatever they say you do. But they're much more comfortable. Just tell us what to do and we'll do it. And that works great, especially for Christians. Oh, that's what the Bible says? Well, why aren't we doing that? See? So they're fine with authority, and so we've started now. We had just a great training. We said, this is what a director ought to do. This is what he needs to do every day. This is what he needs to do once a week. This is what he needs to do once a month. And we just laid it all out for them, and it's been very successful there. Okay, I don't know why I'm clicking it too hard. Who else is this now? Oh, that's me. Okay, so I did a session on something. I can't remember. It's been a while now. But anyway, Christy trains, I train, and Roger, his name looks like Roger. In English it's Roger, but Togo is a French-speaking country, so it's Roger. And Kujoji. Kujoji is obviously an Ave name, but we did most of the sessions of teacher training. This is a great classroom. This is one of our kindergarten classrooms, actually, and they have the alphabet in there. And just, if you want to come out, if you paint, BW, and just want to come, or somebody and do some painting of our classrooms and decorate the classrooms, there was just a man. What's his regular job? Do you have any idea? Kroger. Yeah, he works, I think, in the produce department in Kroger, but his wife's a teacher. And so he came out on a team to Togo, and he decided to come with her and said, well, what can I do? Well, he's an artist. So we said, paint pictures on classrooms. He's got monkeys and baskets of things and all. He was just fab. So all that to say, whatever you can do, we'll put you to work. We've got it. You can do anything. I don't usually teach children. Mostly, all our schools have Togolese teachers. There are no American teachers, except maybe sometimes if we have a visiting person, they'll come and teach English in the junior high school. And I think that's probably what I'm doing here for 6th grade. Every now and then I would go in and teach them English to them. I don't know why I'm not doing this. Oh, yeah, okay, but I've got to come back and tell more about schools.
Okay. All right. Remember your gifts. You had some money that you wanted for a well, and you also raised money for those proclaimers. Okay? Now, what those are, the proclaimers are mainly used by our chaplains at the hospital. We as missionaries, we learn French, because that's the official language, that's the governmental language, that gets us around and so forth. But if you're ministering the gospel to people that come to the hospital, either down south or up north, you're doing it in their native languages. And there's 40-some languages like that in Togo. So we choose our chaplains, good, strong believers, but they also have multiple. But up north, we had proclaimers that are like 5 or 6 different languages. And so those really help. Told me that it usually takes 3 gospel presentations for the idea to really sink in to the Togolese people. And so it's our purpose then, whenever they come to the hospitals, is to give them at least 3 presentations of the gospel. And in a system of hospital like that, you just don't, the patient just doesn't come and then everybody comes visit during visiting hours. No. the whole family comes. So that's the area that John Tusink was building for the families to stay there. So you got mom coming who's going to fix the meals for not only the sick person, but also the rest of the family that comes. So when you have 2,500 operations, when you have 18,000 clinic visits a year, you've got the whole family showing up. So those numbers don't even touch those other families, those other people that we have the gospel outreach to. So those medical ministries have been very fruitful now, and the proclaimers really help. But many of you ask about the water. Okay, can you turn that one sideways for me? We knew we were going to have a problem with that every once in a while. Can't? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. There'll be another one that'll show you that in just a second. But watch what happens here. This is not your old grandma's pump. I had one of my relatives used to have a Class Act, which was a pump inside the house that was right at the sink. That was the running water inside. Well, this is the same thing, only this is for the whole village. So this is where your money went. Now, you notice that it wasn't just a little well. It was the whole system around it, the concrete, the walls, and so forth. So this is the way they think a well in a village should look like and how it operates. Now, do you notice the well is in 3 parts? Okay, good, heavy, solid parts. If something goes wrong, it's one of those 3 parts. So all you have to do is unbolt it, stick it back together with another part, and you're back up running. So that's what happened here. This is the well that you all spent your money for, was drilled and installed, but we had some extra money. So this is a well that had gone bad. So with the extra money that you had, this was repaired. So it wasn't putting out water, so you got 2 for the price of 1 for your money here. Not only did you build a new well, you repaired an old well. So you got 2 cities up in the north. And this is the driest area of Togo. There are 1 or 2 rivers, but those are the boundaries of Togo. Very few rivers in between. So if you want water, you got to dig a well. So that's why the wells are extremely important in the north of Togo. Okay. Yeah, we're going to take questions. Fire away. Motorbike. Yep, that's right. I think what we raised, help me here, didn't we come up with about $8,000 or $9,000? Okay. The first well cost about $7,000, $7,500. And the repair was the balance of that. No. This was much further up north. This is where it's really dry and hot, dusty. But I have to tell you about when the people pay up there. Down south it was cash. Up north, if you're sick and you want to pay, sometimes you bring cattle, goats, chickens, and so up north, they now, inside their big, huge monster hospital area, they have herds of goats and cattle. Now that's really interesting with accounting. How do you count the assets for? So anyway, that's some very interesting accounting that we worked through on that. So, okay, but that's a good question. Okay. Uh-huh. Meat is meat.
Well, 17 chickens all the time. We were there with the car. I didn't do any chickens, but I hit a couple goats, and somebody was saying, how nice of you to provide meals under wheels for people. We did that.
Yeah, I'll duck one way once for a chicken, but I won't wreck my car for a chicken, okay?
Yes.
Oh,
that's
yes.
true.
You know, you may get turned down by the blood bank here, but not in Togo. We will take your white blood. You know, it is good stuff. So, yes, anybody that comes visits, we want to get at least a pint from you, okay?
I just want,
Mm-hmm. That's right. He grew up on a farm and then did heavy machinery work. So he can fix boilers, he can fix oxygen machines, he can fix most of our hospital equipment, as well as, you know, the tractors. And the guy is just, he's exactly what Togo needed.
so you need to pray for John and for his wife Betty. They got stuck in the States for a good bit, for several months during COVID. They just couldn't travel across the borders. But they'd been back in Togo less than a month, I think, when they got test results that Betty's got some cancer that they're going to have to deal with. So they're going to have to come back to the States again for a while. And so if you would just pray, John really wants to be in Togo working, and Betty, of course, Betty does too. But anyway, just pray for her health. They'll be able to just spend many more years in Togo helping us out, because, boy, we depend on him, and we can use anybody who's got
You can
skills
see
in
what
that area.
you can see what talents we had when we started and what God did. The same thing happens with every one of you. God uses everything in your history as a talent.
Okay, I want to just take 5 minutes or less and tell you where we're headed with our schools, to give you some idea. We built the schools up. When we were there, our job was to train teachers and write curriculum, find donors for school materials and stuff. But now that we've been up and running, we have an association of Christian schools. All these Togolese schools have bonded together in a Christian school association. And we had 2 men running it, Kujioji and Roger. But they just cannot oversee 23 schools. So we pay their salaries through donations, and now we have hired 3 more just on a per diem. They work for us 2 days a week, 3 of them, so that we've divided our schools into 5 zones. Our schools cover the length, all of Togo. So we have two groups in Lomé, the capital city, a group around Polymé, a group kind of in the middle, and then a group up in the north. Anyway, there are 5 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. And so we've trained these now. In Togo, in the French system, you have, it's called conseiller pédagogique. It's like a pedagogic counselor. And so that's what these are. And so they go into each school in their zone, and we give them checklists, okay? So for the month of October, this is what you're looking for on your visits to the schools. In March, this is what you're looking for in the visits to the schools. And so we, anyway, it's just all very structured for them now to make, it's just quality control in the schools. The last month of the school year is basically inventory, so make sure we get back all the materials that we need to get back. Then, so we set in place some structures for them, for the schools that they didn't have before. And then the second thing we did was we gave them a goal for this school year. And we were, you can fix everything. There's so many things wrong. But we're focusing on 2 areas. The first one is discipleship. So Andrew is in charge of the discipleship, and he disciples these five leaders, school leaders. They in turn disciple the school directors. The school directors then disciple their own teachers, and the teachers are discipling all the children in their classrooms. So they're using, I forget what book it is that they're using for discipleship, and they'll use a different one every year probably. But anyway, at least we put that structure in place to make sure, because our Christian School Association is about making disciples. That's our goal, is to make disciples of Jesus Christ. And so we just had to make it sure that it was a priority. The other thing we're tackling is reading. Our schools are the only schools in Togo that have books. Christy was able to make a connection with an organization in France. They sent us a container full, 24,000 books in French for our schools. That is like 1,000 times more books than are in the whole country of Togo. But anyway, but the problem is nobody has ever read. Our teachers just are not readers. There were no books. They didn't grow up reading. So they were not using the library time. They were not prioritizing checking out the books for the kids. So we targeted reading. Every teacher reads 10 minutes a day. And we put them in accountability groups. They just read. They talk about what they've read, what they've learned from what they've read, and they just learn to read. And then they are accountable to their principal to make sure that their children are getting to the library and checking out books, and that the children are learning to read, because it will make such a huge, well, you can just imagine, just a huge difference to their language skills in French, to be able to read it and in kindergarten, in the early grades, kindergarten, first and second, we've built in time into their daily schedule for the teachers to read to their children. So those are the two objectives. So that's primarily what we're doing. And then, we've been at this since 2005 when we just started, and now we are seeing our graduates teaching in our schools. All they have to do is go through junior high to be able to be an elementary school teacher. And we have some of our former students Andrew has them in his Bible Institute. And so we just look for the day. We want to start eventually a program where businessmen or storekeepers or whatever apprentice our students, our junior high students, so that we can get them worked into businesses and learning through apprenticeships, but we can't do everything at once. But anyway, we do have grand plans, a vision for the future for these schools, but we're just so thrilled for what God has done, because really I see it more and more in the United States. It's been a shocker to come back to the United States and just see what a difference. All this, who knows what gender I am and all this kind of stuff, is just because people don't believe that God created man and woman and that God formed you in the womb to be exactly who you are, and and the consequences are huge. When you write off God, you get depression, you have suicide, you have no purpose to life, and I could see that in Togo. Disease, there would be no science if God hadn't created a world that moves in order, and that, day and night, and if there was, if it just is chaos, you can't even, and you see that in Togo. They don't believe in science. It's somebody put a curse on you, so anyway, but now to see how much that is coming to the United States is, it's just astonishing. But anyway, that's where we work. One day our schools in Togo will be better than education here in the U.S. So.
Okay, now some of you have asked about what we're doing in the future, okay? I've got one more doctor visit on Wednesday to give me the final okay, and if that happens, we're making plans to go to Ukraine. Why Ukraine? Okay. As part of missions, when you have large groups of missionaries...
Oh, now wait a minute. He's going to tell you the spiritual reason we are going. We are going because our daughter
Yes,
and her husband
and grandkids.
and our 4 grandchildren
Our 4
are in
grandkids.
Ukraine. So we are
Yes.
finding a missions
But
excuse.
I was trying to get there. Because if you look at the ABWE world, here are the countries that want accountants. Bangladesh, we've been there. Togo, we've been there. South Africa, Gambia, let's see, Peru, New Guinea, Costa Rica, and Ukraine. So of all of those choices, which one has grandkids? Ukraine, okay? So that's the plan. We will see whether or not God allows this, how it works. So we'll know by Wednesday.
But I did already sign up for the Women of Joy retreat because we'll be back in October for a while.
Yes, we'll be back in October. That's right. Okay, now, questions?
You said there were 40-some languages up north.
Correct.
How similar are those languages?
No.
Not at all.
Some are, but they're just a lot of different language
If you
groups.
spoke 5 or 6 different ones, that would be essentially the same as Polish.
Yes, but a lot of them do that. I mean, yeah, they do.
Of all those cows and pigs and chickens that come for payment, is there any way where they do those, do they sell them?
Yeah.
Yes, Certain times of the year, you fatten them up and then you sell them. That's right. Just like y'all do here, right? That's right.
There was basically no COVID. They shut everything down. The government just felt like they had to make sure the world knew that they were doing something to fight COVID. But basically, there was no COVID in Togo while we were there. They're getting a little bit more of it. But, they put just terrific lockdown restrictions on people. But really, they let the businesses go up and running. Otherwise, they would have just had riots in the streets. I mean, we had riots in the streets here, but anyway, there it works. So anyway.
There you've got about 1 or 2 days of food in your house. You don't have a refrigerator. So you have to go out and buy food, so the government had to let food come in.
Well, people needed money too, so they're not getting stimulus checks from the Togo
That's right, no
government.
stimulus checks in Togo.
No.
The businesses have freezers.
Oh, yes, I know, yes. The missionaries have them.
One fella, he died while his people was gone.
We were there at the time,
And
yes.
they wanted his family to see. So they let it in the freezer, put it in the freezer.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the story on that one is that when you die, you wait till the ground is soft before you bury somebody and notify all the relatives, and you have a huge funeral for the whole village. Okay? Well, eventually, the ice boxes where the government has the storage for everything get full. I mean, you put one in this way, and then you put another one in on top the other way, and you double them up, sometimes triple up if they're small, and so all of the places were full. There were no places to keep the bodies. And so one of the missionaries cleaned out his freezer and put the person in the body. So this is missionary jokes for the next 30 years. Oh, here's a finger. Oh, missed that one.
You do what it takes.
What was the thing you were talking about that, when you were talking about the hospital, the things to reach out to people in all their languages?
The proclaimers.
Yes.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, let's see. I've got one here.
So you can put it right at their bed because you can't have it. But we have a lot of Muslim patients, and so they just are fearful of people knowing that they're listening to the gospel. So these things they can just play right next to them.
These are powered with 110 or 220 little 9-volt plugs, or by crank, or by solar. So you can get power most anyway. And then you choose what language you've got. And they've got, over 1,000 languages that you can pick, and you just slip that chip in, and you've got the entire, usually it's the New Testament, what they start with, but if they have the whole Bible, they give you the whole Bible. So this is, if you want to follow up with somebody that's in a language you have no idea, and then you can, usually you take this out with a missionary to a group, and you play it. But you can leave it if it's trustworthy, and then they just go through a chapter a day or in their own language. The Bible is definitely more effective in what we call your heart language. And if you can hear the Word of God in your heart language, it makes so much more difference than listening to it in a second or a third language that you may have acquired. There's no question about it. Let's see. Oh, there it comes.
Netamari. Parece kaya Esrom. Esrom kaya Aram. Aram kaya Amnadabu kaya Naasoni. Naasoni kaya Salomoni.
That's Matthew 1:1, going through the genealogy of Jesus Christ.
In some language.
In some language. What language was it? You know? Yes, I learned a little bit of that in school too.
Okay, last question.
We got time. Go ahead.
Does the hospital staff have access to these to take them to patients and put the right chip in, or?
Yes. Now, but there's if it's one of the common languages, Ewe or Kabylie, Judy Bowen in our language center has little tiny chips, like the SIM chips that you put in your phone. You can slide those in your cell phones, and you've got all the scriptures. So if it's in one of the very, very common ones, then you've got the whole Bible in your cell phone.
We also have the Jesus film in many, many languages that we show at the hospital in the ward. We have a big screen in the wards and in the reception area and stuff like that, so we can do a lot with the Jesus film as well.
And while they're waiting for to see people in the clinic, they're showing some kind of film or gospel presentation. You know, just under $200.
Each one of these was $200.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
Could you get caught with that?
Sorry.
Could you get caught doing that?
No, they're fine with it.
No problem in Togo. One of the best things about Togo is there's freedom to preach the gospel.
We probably have more religious freedom in Togo than we have here in the States,
Yeah,
actually.
probably. We don't have anybody on social media beating you up.
Okay, it's
We have 18
it's 7 o'clock.
in Togo, but we have 4 of those proclaimers in other parts of the world, which we did at the time we sent those to you.
Okay. We also use these in our radio station that we have up north. You may not be aware that we have a radio station up north that preaches the gospel in multiple languages at various times during the day. It's one of the new ministries that we had up there for about the last year or so, and we're going to be expanding that back down in the south. The north is an evangelistic medium. The south is probably more a discipleship medium.
Because we've been there longer.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I remember right, what you said about that hospital, they lose a lot of people because the witch doctor don't work.
Right next to the hospital down south, there's about 100 yards away, there's a witch doctor that has his little flag up. That's how you know whether it's a witch doctor. So we've heard some pretty good horror stories from there. The funniest one I remember is these guys got drunk, and they wanted some potion to make sure that no one could hurt them. And so the witch doctor sold them whatever they were supposed to sell. And so the guy, you know those big long knives they have, we call them coops, but they're machetes. So the guy took the medicine and was assured that it was going to work, so told his buddy to whip out his machete and see if it had cut his arm. And sure enough, it cut his arm. So then he comes to the hospital, okay? So We get a lot of repair places. Also, some of the doctors that the government employs are really, really scary docs. You don't want to go to a government hospital. Sometimes we get people that have been sick and can't figure out what it's doing. We open them back up and there's a towel in there. So, there's all kinds of strange things if you go to a government hospital. If you're sick, you want to go to our hospital.
We have to deal with a lot of abortions with the herbal medicines and stuff like that have just ruined a lot of women and killed many of them as well.
If I remember right, y'all did say at one time, and it may have changed since then, y'all was the only hospital that had an hospital within 600 miles, is that right?
We have oxygen throughout the whole operation because we have an oxygen concentrator. Everybody else, if you want oxygen, you got to go buy it, and it's very expensive. So yes, we can plug you right in. Now, in the old days, we didn't have that. We only had 2 or 3 oxygen concentrators, and if 4 people needed oxygen, the doc had to choose. Now we don't have that tough choice. We can. Well, what happened is that we normally delivered 600 babies a year. Okay, but what happened, they didn't have a surgeon that could handle the difficult cases. So they cut it back so you had to look like you were going to have a pretty normal birth. And so they're down to like 250 now. So if you know a doctor that wants to handle those tough cases, we can save 400 more kids every year.
And if I remember right, and I won't say no more, I say they don't sell guys for the gallons,
Liter. 4 liters to an imperial gallon.
and these little gas stations is just a little old thing, it's got a few bottles set up, or you buy your bottle, you want these little,
2 cycle motos.
yeah, and I seen one time, I'll never forget it, long as I live. I seen one time, what you call
They're 2 cycle engines, so they have the oil in
A
the...
moto.
mopeds.
A moto.
We call them motos, motorcycles.
I seen 7 people
Yeah.
on one of them little mopeds one time.
Yeah.
You couldn't see the moped, all you could see was the moped.
Yeah.
Yep. And sometimes you see probably anywhere from 8 to 10 sheep because they've got them arranged on various things around.
And them goats and chickens, if there is a car come through, they're smarter than our dogs. Them goats and chickens know, by God, if they don't get off that bridge, they're gonna die. And so they get off that bridge when the car comes.
But along the roadside, you'll see tables with about 8 or 10 liquor bottles. So it looks like they're all selling liquor all along the roads, but it's not. It's gasoline for the motos.
Yeah.
So you can get it anywhere.
But they also, if you see a stick with a little cup, that means you buy the liquor, buy the drink right there on the spot out in the weeds.
Hey, all right, I don't want to tell you no more.
You heard it here. You heard it here.
When I went over, I knew people before, and I told you where I was from before I come home. I left one said I didn't go through New York Navy. So anyhow, the last day, I told this fellow, I said, or I tell him, I said, at the end of the day, I said, I'm gonna give you my clothes. Well, and boy, camouflage overalls is a hot item.
That's right.
They wore them every day. Every day after I give them, they come home.
And to church. And to church. That's a class operation.
Yeah, every war. But anyhow,
BW was the only one we had to have a translator for the Americans to understand.
when I did my mathematics, I already forgot it when I did mine. I just want to tell y'all something I don't forgot what it was.
Okay, any more questions about Togo?
It's fun.
Any more questions about Togo? Well, anyway, you see the screen up there. We really appreciate your prayers, the support that you gave us, and we hope that your money's been well invested. If we do go to Ukraine, we will have some needs, as far as support. Ukraine's more expensive. Kiev is the capital city, so it's like going to New York. So things are probably double in expense and so forth. So we do need your prayers and support for that. So, and I know you've already planned for that and so forth. So we thank you for that, and we think you've made a good investment. We'll see. All right.
Yes, if you're looking for a place to tithe or invest your stimulus checks, you can send them to Togo schools, Togo Christian schools.
That's right. Best stimulus around. Okay, Pastor.
Thank you.